10 a.m. House guests will showcase a cadre of professionals from doctors and entrepreneurs to the next door friendly neighbor. So tune in as we network the community with a platform for open, frank, and informative discussion. Only on Soufriere FM, your community radio station.
Seagull Productions.
Miss Strange. 88.5 Surf FM. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here inside of this beautiful Thursday, the 31st, which is the last day of the month 2024. And who's here with me, Mr. Stevaco Joseph. We're taking a look back at Creole Heritage Month, the celebrations, and of course, seeing how much of that culture are we preserving or even preserving. The highlight for sure for Creole Month is undoubtedly Journée Creole. But what we see really happening now is just a grand bloco, if you ask me about it. And who is better to share with me than the cultural activist himself, Mr. Joseph? But good morning and welcome to this discussion.
Bonjour,
Bonjour. Ça va?
ça va bien?
Bien, merci. Yes.
Comment il est? Il va mettre français en dedans. Oh, ok. Parce qu'il est sorti dedans Ouassine français, Ouassine Afrique. Oui.
D'accord. Bonjour tout le monde. Like I said earlier on, we're just having a discussion. Feel free to call us in as well if you have any concerns, anything you want to share with us, especially with the weekend hosting of the Journée Creole activities. But before we get into that, I've had discussions off the record where persons are saying, are we really celebrating Journée Creole? Are we?
That's the question you're posing to me right now there. Are we really celebrating Journée Creole?
Yeah, because a lot of traditions have been lost.
Well, that is the intent of the Folk Research Center. All right, the Monsieur Patrick Anthony Folk Research Center. That's the intent. If you turn to if you go and look them up, you will see what the intention is. The intention for Moi Heritage Creole is it's a major national cultural festival created by the Folk Research Center through the inception of Journée Creole to celebrate Saint Lucian tradition, Creole culture, and language. So the intention is quite clear: to celebrate Saint Lucian tradition and the Creole culture and language. The question we have to ask is that happening? And to what extent it is happening? As you said in your introduction, Journée Creole is the climax of that month of Creole heritage. People share different thoughts on that, because I heard a gentleman on HTS, or was it DBS, one of the St. Lucian TV stations, in the news program, expressing his satisfaction with the organizers of the event. And he expressed his satisfaction based on the fact that with the limited resources that they're given, especially financial resources to organize, that he felt, in his opinion, they are doing a good job. I believe, from my perspective, the Journée Creole intention and mission and vision is positive. It's positive and powerful. I also believe that the Moi Heritage Creole is a great vibration. But where I have the issues is, how do the Folk Research Center take on to carry out its intentions, expectations, and mandate, if you want to call it that. So thus far, I think lots have to be done. There is still more to be done. And if after almost 3 decades, because it was the first Journée Creole was in 1984, as I understand it from their website, it was in 1994. So we're talking about 3 decades. 3 decades, exactly 3 decades. There is still much to be done. one would suggest that things of that nature is a work in progress.
Yes.
Now, herein lies some of my discontent or distress with Junior Creole and My Heritage Creole. The parameters are not clear to me. The parameters are not clear. The demarcations, what need to be done, to me is not clear. And I think that's where some some work need to take place. For example, are we clear as to what must happen, what the Folk Research Center wants to see happen? Well, for me, I have in my mind what I want to see happen. I want from the 1st of October for me to feel a change in St. Lucia, a change in the environment where it is inundated, where it is pestered with Creole vibrations. And I'm not getting that. And I find myself in a lot of little, not combats, little conflicts with people and so on. So, for example, what do I mean by that? Airwaves, our media should be on the list from October 1st. We should be having 99.999% of Creole vibration, language, music, debates, discussions, Creole, strictly, all airwaves, DBS, HTS, Calabash TV, any radio stations in the island must be mandated to that parameter. Put in some regulations, some guidelines. At least 60% or 70% of your content during October should reflect our intention for more heritage Creole. And that is where I have a lot of discontent. When you go to the bars and the pubs, I think they should be mandated as well, given some parameters. Your musical content should be, So these are the things that, in a nutshell, thus far, that I want to say in terms of how I feel about the intention and expectations put forward by the Folk Research Center. If, for example, I take you through what they say Junior Creole should do, all right? One, helps communities discover collectively and share in the rich cultural heritage, brings communities together irrespective of color, creed, class, or partisan affiliation to address issues of culture and community development. Next bullet of what Junior Creole should do according to the Folk Research Center. Mobilizes communities to collectively utilize cultural resources for economic development in an environment free from selfishness and greed. I like that one. I like that one very much, and we'll be dealing with it a little bit later based on how we go ahead. The next bullet is utilizes both the traditional wisdom of communities and the learning from the formal institutions to stimulate a positive and wholesome educational experience. And the last bullet develops the confidence of the vast number of St. Lucians persons whose principal means of communication and expression is in the use of the Creole language. Now, it is based on these expectations or aims and objectives, if you want to call it that, that I gave you my feeling about what I feel is lacking and what should be done.
I have taken all your points into consideration, and maybe as we deliberate one by one, for sure, I will agree with you. Great emphasis has to be placed from October 1st. For me, I find it to be a challenging period where certain households in growing up, it was strictly English language. So you find the Creole now became a barrier, like expression of self, like you're lost in a maze as to how do you go to your day to day. Yeah, you understand certain things. You have one, two, maybe sentences you carry along, but like an entire dialogue or even maybe hosting a program to an extent is difficult. Like for me, it is
It is difficult for you to comprehend.
to have a one-on-one conversation.
Yeah. Well, that's for you because maybe you were not raised up, or maybe you spent a lot of time overseas and so on. So your background permitted you. But what I found um, in the schools, the kids understand Creole. I would say a greater percentage of them understand it rather than in the schools among the children than not. So that's good. Although they don't speak it, they are not good at speaking it, but you would speak it to them and they would understand what you're saying. I saw a clear difference when I was at the primary school in Soufriere and the primary school in Kenries. The students in Kenries were more au courant with the Creole language. As a matter of fact, they were able to give the interpretations, very good interpretations of the Creole sayings and the Creole proverbs or the Tipawal Creole a little bit better than the Soufriere primary school children and so on. But they do understand it because they are in the culture. They are in the vibrations. That's why what I am recommending is necessary. Even if there's a big discussion and the focus is on Creole and they'll be speaking the Creole language, there is a tendency for some of the speakers, knowing the vibrations of the population, to break it down in Creole, to break down certain things of importance in Creole. And it does happen in that. So I'm not saying it should be strictly speaking Creole, because we don't. In St. Lucia, we don't. All right? We speak both. We're
Which is true.
bilingual.
Yes,
Yeah.
we are.
So
I
Well,
think somebody should highlight, I think firstly we need to stop using the American slang. I came home and all I could hear was people using American slang. Now we are not Americans but proud. So I don't know, maybe something you highlighted.
yeah, and that's interesting because the caller would be aware, not the caller, but the listener or the viewer, yeah, would be aware that the infiltration of foreign culture is a big thing in the Caribbean region. And St. Lucia is also a victim of this influence. Mode of dress, language, we are deeply influenced by American culture. And so it's no surprise if you are hearing American slang in the St. Lucian environment.
another thing, still speaking on the infusion of the Creole language, I think education should be, of paramount interest as well. And I'm happy with the Creole language now being part of the school syllabus. I think they've done well. But how much of that are we going to embrace?
Yeah, as a retired educator, oftentimes in every problem that arises or every issue that needs fixing, people always say education is education is education. And it's as if in education they are doing nothing about it, but that's not always the case. For example, before I left the school, my last year at the school, there is the formation of the Creole Club. I think at every secondary school right now, it is the expectation that there will be a Creole Club. And the purpose of the Creole Club is for that sensitization of young people into the Creole culture, starting with the language and so on, so that there is good programs being implemented. And as you said, there are moves towards the teaching of the Creole language at certain levels in schools. So that is progressive, that is good, it is long overdue, and we applaud these kind of initiatives.
Nice. In your line of work, cultural community activists on the ground, Do you think enough emphasis has been placed as far as we are concerned, proud Lucians and embracing such culture? We can maybe speak to the mode of dress, like you say, when Creole comes around. I know a lot of us, like you, been displayed in your madras. We see persons beautifully clad with whether it's the dresses being made, shirts being made, and I think we should show some sort of appreciation to that. But then again, it's only been seen for this specific month. What are your thoughts?
Well, if Creole, or if culture rather, is the way of life of a people, it should be manifesting in our way of life.
Which is true. I got that.
It should be manifesting in our way of life. It was more so in the olden days. And some people say culture is dynamic, so we do not expect everything to remain the same. And so we do not see that in terms of attire, mode of dress, and so on. We don't see it much in our everyday living. We don't see it much in our everyday living. We see exhibition of it during October and in fashion shows, but in our everyday living, no. In terms of
Yes, that's
traditional
what
wear,
I was
yeah.
about to say. Another point we can look at in terms of, you spoke of media and enough of the Creole music is not really being infused and whatnot. But then again, what we have to look at the availability. Yes, we have the popular, the Denry segment, the Kudro, that is really dominating. But apart from that, what else is hot? What do we have? We can talk about the Sensen, folklore, and whatnot,
Right.
but then our people don't gravitate to that so much.
I'm happy you brought this up. And I saw a Street Vibes the last time. And a young man, I get the sense that he is a musician. And he was making the point that, yes, there is segment, there's all these kind of other Creole songs in Calypso and so on. But when it comes to the traditional music, of the folk traditional music, it's absent. It is not as pronounced as it should be in terms of the guitar, the banjo, the shak shak, the taboo as key instruments in the music of the folk. This is lacking. This is lacking. And that is why I ask, after 3 decades of Jeune Creole and maybe a lesser time of more heritage Creole, do we have more musical bands of the folk tradition? Yes, we have Creole songs being made. All right. Do we see infusions or experimentations in the modern Creole songs, bringing into play these traditional instruments?
I could
much.
say yes to an
Yes.
extent because
2024,
you and I,
yeah.
what we witness, we have the award service and we must give them the credit for sure. But then even to that, they can have, young persons who are also interested in following that path to recruit them. You understand? Because it is something where you do not want the culture to die. You need it to be passed on to generations and generations to come.
Another thing
So,
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
no.
I was about to say shout out to some of our producers right here. You made mention about the older in terms of the various instruments, but right now they're bringing it. I think I want to use the word more on like digitized.
Yeah, it's digitized.
You understand?
And that's what the young man was saying. It's
Yeah.
digitized. It's not authentic.
That's
So
it.
the authenticity
But
is the point that we're trying to get at.
Okay, I get that, but I think it's still the essence is still there. It's still there. Like the concept is still there. But like you made mention for true in terms of having the instrument played, like 3 decades ago, 4 decades ago, whatever the case may be. So our traditional shak shak. How you call it? Tambourine? What,
You don't-
Taboo,
I don't know when last I saw a shak shak.
You serious? I
No,
thought
when last you saw Shak Shak?
you said our what service.
You were that
so
one
bad.
service have Shak Shak.
I didn't see that.
Have Shak Shak.
Yes.
Well, I don't put myself in the places. But
Shak Shak is there. It's just a tin can with beads in it.
oh, that's a
Yeah,
tin
that's the
can.
Shak Shak. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
Mm.
what you said is correct. There is the musical engineers. They do infuse in the digital format some of the essences of to reflect the essence of the folk tradition instruments, musical instruments. But the point we are making have to do with the authenticity. All right. Um, for example, look at how many of our folk violinists that we have lost.
Mm.
Do we see young people taking up the violin? Now, shouldn't that be something we consider if we are talking about sustaining culture, keeping culture going? That some emphasis in the school's music program should include some kind of emphasis on students learning to play the violin, or some introductory classes to the violin, or students that have an interest in
Reading music too. Huh?
I think
Yeah.
it does.
students.
I
How do you
think
call it? Students that
I
have
think it
interest in
happens.
string instruments.
Okay. Yeah. What is the harp? What
yeah.
is the okay?
Giving them going towards giving them some engagement in the violin and so on. We don't I don't know. I don't see that happening. I know we are losing we have lost rather some of our prominent violinists in St. Lucia when it comes to the folk tradition. So it is things like that that I think we need to look at and give some thought to.
I concur. So the syllabus need to be revised in terms of when music, especially when it comes to music. So if the likes of Mr. Favre, and who has taught music at school?
Well, I don't remember too
Yeah.
many.
But anyways, what we simply
Music
say
teachers.
is like to incorporate all these in as part of the syllabus for students to actually, learn how to play instruments and not lose in regards to our culture.
Which is true. And I think what really exists to use the modern, the music sheet, the format, whatnot, and maybe redesign it to, reflect more of our own culture as well, and not all the Americanized. Because even more sense when you go to concerts or different activities put on by the school, it's always rehearsed of a Rihanna song or a Chris or whatnot. But then what's about our very own, like a Sen, you know?
Yeah, because you mostly hear Sesen in October.
Yes, true. Facts.
How many of our kids know about Mr. Wo, that great folk saxophonist, if you want to call him that? When this man sax was in the party, there was music. How about Defe Laborde with his violin, his violon, Mr. Clyde Butcher? These, I don't know. And even when these people were alive, they were not interacting with our school children. They were not creating programs to have our school children interacting with these students. And for me, during Junior Creole, that was one of the things I tried to emphasize at my school, is to get some of these folks into the school, not just to play music for the kids, to interact with the kids, and even to teach them, help them understand the instrument and so on. So some of these things are necessary, but there is not great emphasis on that. You would see there would be great emphasis on, hey, let's have a pageant.
Yes, you can have a pageant.
I'm not saying no, you
It
can have a
also
pageant. I'm
displays
talking about
creativity
emphasis.
and culture.
Yes, but I know that, but I'm talking about emphasis. I'm talking about emphasis, where the emphasis lie. All right. Yes, indeed, the pageant reflects creativity and Creole mode of dress. There's an effort for the kids to learn to speak the language. All of that is incorporated in the pageant, and that's good. But usually, it's the same thing over and over again, and the other areas are lacking. The other areas are lacking, and that's where sometimes I take issue with, where the emphasis is placed. So, for example, June Creole, on the whole, the emphasis most times is food and music. And you might see a little bit of the dress.
Yes.
Yes?
A large display.
Right. But how about the spiritual values and virtues of the Creole culture?
I get you.
There is not emphasis here. When last have we had a discussion of how some of the folk works has gone astray, has gone out of existence because of the greedy Joe mentality, because of the dog eat dog society, because of the capitalistic venom that infiltrates our society. Koudme, Joupouete,
What is this?
Lend Me a Day, which we call the Jajouné.
Oh,
All right?
okay.
But isn't that Kudme?
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah,
Term-
Koudme,
term
but
differently.
term differently. Term differently. All right? But where's the discussions about that? Why we have lost such a valuable socio-economic practice?
Everything is money.
Everything is money. When these practices were put in place by people who were deprived through slavery, people who were coming out of slavery unfortunate, deprived, dispossessed, put a system in place of communal living where a brother is a brother's keeper, where we help each other. What they call in the Kwanzaa principle, Ujama, cooperative economics. And it also embodies another principle of Kwanzaa, which is Ujima, collective work and responsibility. So all of these concepts, wonderful, beautiful concepts of how to help each other. But you know what have happened? The great God has taken over. That our interaction, our social interactions, are mostly based on the principle of money. All right? So there is not a lot of discussion about that. And are we not lessening our potential as a people when we discard such important traditional practices? And so for me, it's not only about the music, food, and dress, it's also about the folk practices that was reflected in the socio-economic structure of the people.
At this very moment, there's a lot of food for thought. I
Well, what are the
welcome.
listeners saying out there?
10 minutes moving up to the hour of 11 a.m. in Soufriere Solution, of course, the Eastern Caribbean. I must applaud you for sure for availing yourself here today. But then, really and truly, it's quite an interesting conversation where we sit back and say, hey, it's June Creole, I'm going to eat and drink and let's enjoy and let's celebrate it. But then, looking at the concept, the true origin and the purpose and where we were headed, everything is just lost. What?
Don't say everything, because I'm sure the folks at the Mosaic Patrick
Well,
Anthony
all is not lost for sure.
not agree with you.
All is not lost.
All is
We
not
can
lost,
agree to the various organizations that are actually keeping the movement. We have to reach out to SAT as well. Thank you so much for
All
being
right.
a buzz in the community. What I want to ask you as well, I'm not too sure where you partook in terms of your Creole celebrations and what you really saw when you spoke of money. I can 100% agree with you. It's a display, but then why would I still see at Creole festivities chicken? chicken, and pork, and I saw a smile on your face, and
it is
you
the
cannot get away from it.
you cannot get away
It's the
from it.
livelihood.
It's the merchandising in the Creole vibrations that is taking place. It is, like we said, it is the god, the small g
Yeah.
god
Yeah.
of capitalism that is at play. It is the money. All right. And I heard, you see, you saw the amount of merchandising of t-shirts and so
Yes.
on.
Yes.
Yes.
A lot.
Now, I'm not against that. It's good. I love t-shirts.
But
But what are the nature of these t-shirts?
Really, I saw it highlighting what you're wearing.
The madras?
Yeah, the madras on there. The concept still remains, but
Mhm.
and I don't know if he's locked on, but big up the Lucian Shakespeare, Ampa. Yeah, he had a wonderful. I don't know who designed it.
Oh,
or who did
yes,
it. That was
yes.
amazing.
It was.
And I think just injecting a little style
Mhm.
in it, just to bring it up to date so persons can actually wear it.
All that good.
Yeah,
All that good.
what's the stuff over at Chastney, wherever I see they carry it along as they work, part of the working uniform.
Mhm.
And I mean, like, all that still has the culture going, persons, hey, you can't forget about that because I see it. Look, you, and again, fans to persons like you keep wearing it, keeping it alive.
Yeah, because that is mine wearing it has nothing really to do with Creole,
No, well,
No, I'm just telling you. But it does because it is my grandmother's tradition. My grandmother often used a mouchoué. We call it the mouchoué or the mouchoir. And in her memory, I continuously wear it, and it has become a part of Soufriere Action's theater dress code. Yeah. Yeah. So let's go back to the merchandise.
Yes, the merchandise, right.
A lot of people complain about the price of food,
Yes.
and I see
Yes.
they
Yes.
try and blame that on Junie Creole. It's not the price of food has nothing to do with Junie Creole.
No, but they
Well,
use they
It is
use
reflective of the capitalist system of the economy.
Well, persons,
Do you know how much for a pound of saltfish?
I wouldn't know.
My brother, saltfish long time ago was the poor man's food, but now saltfish is manger go maison.
$20, something like that. I don't know.
It's expensive.
okay.
It's expensive.
You get a small piece for about $15.
Yeah, it's very expensive. So when you order a plate of a saltfish meal and you're given a portion of saltfish and with your macabu, your dashing, whatever you prefer, your salad and so on, and they tell you $25 and you're screaming.
See, because persons was watching value for their money. I think that's what persons are simply saying. But like you made mention, you cleared it out. The commodity, the prices in the stores have gone up.
Yeah, but everybody
Yeah.
is aware of that. People have been saying that for the longest while, that things are expensive in the supermarket.
Plus, there wasn't time for prepping it.
Exactly.
All those
So all of this must be factored in.
Yes.
So I heard people complain a lot about that. What I want to ask is, were people satisfied with the quality?
Taste and everything.
Yeah, the quality of the food. Did they sense that when they went around in the different stalls and so on, did they experience Creole cooking? Or was it prepared at home? Prepared at home, sorry, I'm saying prepared. Prepared at home and brought to
the venue.
Yes, because I remember in the early days of Junie Creole, there was emphasis on the experiencing.
Facts.
Yes,
Facts.
on the experiencing that we were seeing the dogway being kneaded, and we were seeing the manikou being roasted and that kind of stuff. I think that emphasis is a little dissipated, strayed away. Yeah, it's
That's
lessening.
True. That's true. Even when
It's
you
lessening.
the butchering of the pig or whatever, and then one time you're grilling it, you do the other thing. That's true.
Yeah, in the olden days of Junie Creole, there was more experiential learning.
That's true.
Yeah, it was meant to be experiential learning. That is, there's some of it is still there, I think, but it's fading away. The scale it was on, it's very. Nowadays, people are more concerned about the quick buck. Yes, just like we got into a culture of fast food. Fast food. Um, I was surprised, my brother. Maybe about maybe 15, maybe so 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long time, eh?
Yeah,
About
it's a very long time.
15 years ago, we went to Trinidad with some students, and some of them did not even know how to go in a fig.
Mm. Peel the green figs.
Yes.
Mhm.
So, comment dire aussi un team Mike is on cette ici. Soufriere, Kanawi, Anslawe,
Mhm.
et Gwaza Gwen Fig. Ou Baza Mane appreciate that shit, man.
Madam Waki too, does it?
Wait.
Yeah. Hey, folks on the outside, if you want to make a contribution, remember you can call us at 459-785-730-5388. All right, folks, let's get interactive. 6 minutes away from the top of the hour. Let's keep it going.
Amidst that discussion we were having, actually, permit me to ask you, Mr. Symphorian, in terms of the Junior Creole celebrations and where you partook. For me, I did the ancillary part of it, and to my amazement, when I got there, for the first time, when a pan was uncovered, I saw some things like a whole set of snails, which caught my attention. And then I asked, "What's that?" And they said it's buigo. So I'm saying, I've never heard of the buigo. And I was a little iffy. Like I wanted to try it, and something that I've never seen that. And what if it, upsets me and stuff like that? But then I didn't. But curiosity to see all those hard shells in a big pan and then just boiling up and stuff like that. But then how do you go by eating it? And a few persons did place an order for me. I had conch, and even at that very same June Creole, I got to know like conch is lobby. Conch, whatever is lobby. Like I had no idea
But
what
then,
that was. And so it's
so
an
long
experience
ago-
where you learn as
Yeah.
well. So
You have to learn.
Yeah.
So long ago, I have not interacted with Brigo that I'd forgotten how to eat it. And I relearned the weekend of Jeune Creole at Library.
Right.
A past student of mine was selling some, and I bought it. And then I'm freaking out, man. How do you get this meat out of there? How you get the meat out of there? And there was a guy there, a fisherman, and he just showed me how to do this and that. And it was saying, "God, Stevaco."
it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
No, but even like
and
I
that's-
shared, I was really fascinated seeing all of that. And I'm like, yes, snails and
Guys,
stuff.
there was a lot of exotic foods there.
Mhm.
A lot, eh?
So you went to all of the
I
free
didn't
areas?
went to the free areas, but I went
Okay.
at one place and imagine I ended up reaching 1 inch was there. At the back of there.
Yeah.
Like prior to the
Yeah.
My goodness. Man, nice vibe. Nice little vibe.
No.
For sure.
Yeah, there are usually
Nobody cool. Why you call it
there's usually a lot of
Oh, that is something to stay
that.
away from. The Monaco?
Don't tell that to everybody.
Boy!
They have fellas that tell you that it's the sweetest chicken.
I'm not serious. That man, boy, you
Nah.
Yeah, man, they have fellas that tell you that it's the sweetest chicken. Eh?
No.
I don't know if that man will get vexed with me, but that rice, say boy, that is the thing.
Really? Nah, not at all.
Somebody
even-
tell me that he said that's the thing, man. When you get somebody that could real prepare that, the man say, boy, give him that 24/7, and he's going to devour it.
But even the display of, I saw a lot of crabs as well too. You know, I don't know. I think
crabs.
all in all, I mean,
You've never been a fan of crowds.
there was a great variety on the ground, questioning various persons as to how the exhibits,
When you were in
were
Ansley,
at
how
the
was
various
the crowd?
places, and it was such a crowd. But then the rain put a damper to an extent. On and off rains, performances, rejuvenating. I can say Umpa really, really moved the crowd for sure. And we saw, a lot of the what you call it, the Denry segment, that has just taken over. And if you're at any concert whatsoever, you have not heard the Denry segment, it's like that sure not making sense,
Okay, because
Yeah,
that's
people
what
are
markets-
waiting and
Oh,
waiting,
yeah,
and
no.
everybody's standing and waiting. Yeah, and there was a cultural group. They put on a fantastic showcasing as well. But then the people at the back of their minds, where is Umpa? Where's the
Yeah,
Denver
yeah,
segment?
sure,
What
yeah.
time was it? So they would stay glued, even if it rains. People would definitely glue themselves just for those
You
performances.
see,
So I think it has been given great recognition as well, but maybe to some extent as well, they need to maybe again rework, in terms of really selling it as a brand for St. Lucia,
I think it's been
you
done,
know.
Yeah,
Because
marketing
if you
because
really have to look at some of the lyrics, like,
yeah, but a lot of the like like you
Lord,
did
but
mention,
Umpire,
he's there
yeah,
representing St.
he's
Lucia.
a brand ambassador.
Yes,
He
yes.
is. So kudos to him as well, for
And to
sure.
all other
Young
persons,
talent.
all other musicians, all right, or one way or another, you giving you well, excuse me, you make your contribution to the culture. Yeah, man,
In
respect
one
the
way or the
matters.
other, kudos. But this is why we're here today, putting or closing the curtains on a successful Creole Heritage Month,
Good night.
Journey Creole. And no other person to help me do that than the man himself.
Stevaco.
Yours truly, yeah? Stevaco.
yeah, right there, always willing to help in the little way that I can, and it's what it is.
What would you presented a few points as well, and I'm putting you to a challenge. What would you like to see come next year? I mean, as far as this
Yes.
month is concerned, or even in the smallest way, what would you want to take on?
To me, I don't look at it as what I want to see next year. What I do, I look at the bigger picture. I want to see whether we are achieving our objectives in the organization of Junior Creole. And remember, I said one of the things that I think is necessary is setting out parameters. Because if you want to bring about changes in the culture of the vibes, you must have consistent practices. You must have routines. You must set parameters. And to me, that's where I want to see some things taking place in the area of setting routines, being consistent with them so that certain things will grow over time. Certain things will grow over time. For example, uh, what is happening with the flower festivals? One happened in August and one happens in October. Do we see a rejuvenation as a consequence of Journée Creole or Moira Heritage Creole? Do we see a rejuvenation of the flower festivals? That is a question I have. Are there more cordial dancing groups with the youth at the heart of it? All right. I've asked the question before. Where is the folk working practices aimed at cooperative economics, UJAMA, and collective work and responsibility, UJIMA? When we know that work builds character, work builds relationship, work builds community. Where is there rejuvenation in the tradition of the wake as a consequence or as a consequence of Journée Creole and Heritage Creole? These are the areas I'm concerned about. Um, will the through Journée Creole and More Heritage Creole, will our wake, the last day, will it revert? Will it go back? Or will it go back to some of its principles and practices rather than the greedy Joe mentality we see in it? And you remember the last time we were here, we really spoke about the wake, the lave, and what it has become. As a matter of fact, a lot of our practices that had this communal spirit to it has become a really selfishness and greed. And you remember when I read you what the Folk Research Center said that Junior Creole should be. One of the bullets were mobilize these communities to collectively utilize cultural resources for economic development in an environment free from selfishness and greed. Well, that's what our wake, our lave has become, an exhibition of selfishness and greed. All right? Because don't forget, and I think Mr. Jude really lambasted that the last time, don't forget the wake tradition was the community, family and friends coming together to assuage, to embrace, to help the family of the deceased mourn the passing of a loved one. Today, the community expects a party from the family of the deceased.
Yes.
And not just that, they are being parasitic on the family of the deceased.
That's true.
That's not our culture.
Shy people went deep with it.
So I'm asking the question, if this is one of what Junio should do, after 3 decades, we see more greed and selfishness in the wake. Now, I'm not blaming the Folk Research Center for that. That's not what I'm doing. I'm saying if that is the intention, the expectation to come out of this celebration, it's lacking. How do we do that? How do we get there? Is the question. By always making people aware of what it was and why it was what it was. That's important. The why these practices is very important. If we keep on, you remember I said routine and consistency in the practices and the education or whatever you have decided once you have set the parameters. All right. So if the reason why the people are always requesting their resegment and so on, and are not dissing their resegment at all, is because that's what the media is feeding the people. The media is not feeding the people avert service. You only mostly hear avert service when they are engaged in a performance, except for whatever tunes they have recorded. And most times you would hear it is around October month.
It's true.
But if in our media, our children are always hearing a particular kind of music, they're always in a particular kind of things, that's what they will gravitate to. And we are overwhelmed with, as you know, with foreign media that dominates our landscape. So it is I understand it is a great struggle, but nonetheless, if the intentions or expectations or aims and objectives as spelled out by the Monsieur Patrick Anthony Research Center is what it is, then there must be some rethinking as to how we achieve some of these objectives that we have set out or these expectations that we have laid out.
Definitely so. Um, Almost our time to say goodbye to this interesting conversation. We've hoped that all areas have been covered.
I forgot
And
one.
I know persons are listening attentively as well, though they may not feel the nudge to, drop a comment or call us up with maybe whatever questions, concerns they may have.
Yes, you give me the opportunity to mention the one.
Definitely.
Have Journée Creole and More Heritage Creole made you more aware and knowledgeable of traditional medicines? You personally?
Not really. Not really.
So that's another area. And
I think everything boils back to education, education and research as well too.
I don't like when you
Like
say
you-
education,
like you made
you're not saying the
mention.
schools, are you?
No, not the
Okay.
schools. No.
Yeah. Because most people when they say education, they mean the schools. And then so
No,
all the
not the
work must be done
schools.
by the teachers and so on.
No.
Yeah.
You owe it to yourself to research, garner knowledge, benefiting to you.
Now that's important. I asked the question because it's a relevant question. All right, because a lot of our supreme herbalists, our traditional folk medicine practitioners, they are dying. They have passed away. We see them passing away. Mr. Adonai of La Puerte Sozel, may his soul rest in peace. Georgie I of Barons Drive, Soufriere, may his soul rest in peace. Mr. Ed Maedi of Faubernier Soufriere, may his soul rest in peace. A lot of our traditional medicine practitioners are passing away. And then also their knowledge lives with them. Is that a big emphasis of Jeune Creole and Maritage Creole? Have we become more knowledgeable and aware of our traditional medicines? I think that's an important question to ask. I think that's a very important question to ask. And perhaps finally for me, if indeed the intentions, we have to examine the intentions, helps community discover collectively and share in their rich cultural heritage, brings community together, irrespective of color, creed, class, or partisan affiliation, to address issues of culture and community development. St. Lucia is more divided than at any time, I think, in its history. And maybe the historians that are better than me will correct me on that if I'm wrong. But the division in our societies and our communities is more pronounced. And so I do not see how Jeune Creole has sort of get us towards these aspirations of togetherness, because that's one of the things I intend to do. Unless they mean that togetherness means when everybody gather a mass at a particular location. As a matter of fact, a lot of people are not quite happy with this mass Jeune Creole activities. My very a man I admire a lot has championed that as well. That is the Giuest. Giuest have consistently said that in his opinion, these selections of communities to have Jeune Creole and have these massive crowds in areas where it is to a certain degree unsafe. The safety of these areas is problematic. When we went to Monrepo, this Jeune Creole, we did not stay there. First to begin, there was no systematic packing accommodation. All right. When we spoke to an officer, the officer informed us that it was roadside parking and you have to find your own. Now, a guy made me realize an important thing. In his opinion, Monrepo, although it has a rich cultural history and tradition, it is not a good place to have Jeune Creole. As a matter of fact, he argues most communities in St. Lucia are not really good places to have Jeune Creole because there is only one way in and one way out. His recommendation is, and I'm putting it out there in case people have not heard it, if they want to have this mass Jeune Creole activities, the friend who I spoke to recommend that Vieux-Fort is the most ideal. Reason being that it gives them a better way of controlling traffic with the possibility of the two ways in and out.
Sure. And
so these are some of the logistics that perhaps would have to be examined. I like Jukba's suggestion. I prefer to stay in my community or to stay in little communities. I do not want, a lot of people don't like the massive crowds.
Which is true.
Little communities and experience something. And to me, that's when it is felt deeper. Because I have been to places that have been outside of the recommended venues, and it have been warmth, a good vibes, a good feeling. You're not in that mesmerizing crowd. You do not have the issue of whether your vehicle is safe and stuff of that nature. So a lot of these things are involved here. And lastly, I want St. Lucians to know that there is a book titled Guamun Se Women, Elders Are Medicine. It is edited, and the analysis of the stories done by Claire Robertson. All right, Claire Robertson. In this book, it is observed that a key factor that differentiates these elders, and that's the elders that gave their stories to that writer and researcher. These people that they researched or they interviewed lived mainly in the 20th century. All were aged from 66 to 109. The mean average age of 82.5 years. They were born from 1893 and 1946, but most of them in the 1920s. From those, they were arguing that from those who are younger is not just the memories of slavery and old customs, but also the experiences of the breaking down of community solidarity. So what the author observed in an analysis, that what all these old folks were saying is that what they observe and what they feel the most is that they are experiencing the breaking down of community solidarity. Now, just oppose this with what the Jeune Creole and my heritage supposed to do in terms of what is articulated by the Focus Center. And you will see we have to do some work. There is some work to be done.
On that note, I say thank you so much to you, Mr. Joseph, for imparting, such knowledge and healthy discussion, I must say. And let's take a look back, food for thought as well, highlighting a few of the points and taking into consideration, like when next year comes around, or even overall in terms of how are we actually bringing more awareness even to our own selves and in celebration of Creole Month. Let's look at the broader perspective of that. Ending, what final conclusion, what would you like to leave with our listening audience, as well as those of you who also are online with us, Thank you so much for that.
Yeah. That's what you said?
Yes, sir.
Jeune Creole, more heritage Creole is great. Perhaps even if it was not for these activities and celebrations, we'd have forgotten a lot of our past. So it is great that we are having that, and we applaud and stand in solidarity with the Focus Center, with all the organizers in the different communities who are trying their best to do what they understand to be what it is they must do during this festive season of our Creole culture. But I think, like I articulated to you, we have some evaluations to do. We have some postmortems to do, and look at more closely at what we want to achieve by doing it.
Thank you very much. I take this as goodbye. Thank you so much for joining me here today, Thursday, the last day of October 2024. And this is where we close the curtains on our part. That is, we close the curtains on Creole Heritage Month. It's been an awesome celebration. Kudos to all the hosts and communities. Thank you, Mr. Joseph.
Thank you very much.
Immense pleasure.
Mr. Soufriere, thank you too.
Moderator, thank you as well.
You're welcome, guys. Bye.
Christianity. Aye, Selassie, Jah. Moi sorti Canawi. Moi étudier l'école Canawi. Teacher